warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Here's what's coming up in the hour. Rescue efforts ongoing in Taiwan following a 7.4 magnitude earthquake, the most powerful the country has seen in decades. The United Arab Emirates airdrops humanitarian aid over Gaza, its 22nd since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Plus, guess who's Prime Minister? Senegal's new President Bassirou Faye appoints opposition figure and mentor Ousmane Sonko. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Amarachi Ubani here in Lagos. Begin in Taiwan, where rescue efforts are underway after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit, killing at least 9 people and injuring more than 800 others. Rescuers are trying to get to some 127 people believed to be trapped in collapsed tunnels and on mountainous roads along the rugged coastline. That tremor, with the epicenter south of Hualien City, was felt all the way in the capital Taipei, which is more than 100 kilometers away. Authorities are saying this is the most powerful earthquake experienced in the country in 25 years. The impact of its tsunami alerts in nearby Japanese and Philippine islands were reported earlier today. Those warnings were later retracted. Social media has been filled with footage of landslides along the coast. They tumbled down the mountains, making huge clouds billowing up from the sea as they crashed into it. Home to 23 million people, Taiwan is largely mountainous in the east, where Hualien sits. Its sparsely populated area, home to indigenous tribes for most of its history, the area has been completely cut off from the rest of Taiwan because of its high mountains. But since the 1930s, the government has carved roads out of the rock face and built tunnels connecting the area to the rest of the island. It's still, however, considered a difficult place to reach, which will complicate rescue efforts. President Tsai Ing-wen spoke earlier, instructing the administration to provide necessary assistance and work together with local governments to minimize the impact of the disaster.
It's a bleak Wednesday in Taiwan as what happened in 1999 took the country by surprise at exactly 7:58 a.m. local time. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake which struck the island's eastern coast prompted tsunami warnings across the region, which was lifted shortly afterwards by the Japanese Meteorological Agency. Officials are continuing to urge people to remain cautious as the tide level could change. The disaster, the strongest in 25 years, left several people killed and more than 800 injured. With all hands on deck, rescue team are searching for more than 130 people trapped in collapsed buildings. Authorities said over 100 aftershocks were recorded. According to the Taiwan Central Emergency Operations Center, at least 26 buildings collapsed in Hualien County. The area was affected by the quake. Fire also erupted at Hualien's National Donghua University following the disaster. Footage shows flames and smoke rising from the upper floors, as well as emergency vehicles parked outside. Taiwan, a self-ruled democracy, has a population of about 23 million people, the vast majority of whom live in the capital, Taipei. On September 21, 1999, Taiwan was devastated by an earthquake of magnitude 7.7, which struck at 1:47 a.m. About 2,400 people were killed and 10,000 injured. More than 100,000 people were left without homes as thousands of buildings collapsed, while many roads and bridges were also damaged. So far, countries such as Japan and China are racing to offer relief assistance to the country following the devastating earthquake.
The viewers, William Yang is in Taipei for us. William, great to see you. The last we heard about the search that was ongoing, looking for 127 people missing across the country. What's the status now?
So we know that at least 70 people are still stuck in a rock quarry region in the eastern part of Taiwan, and most of all the people that are still remain stuck are in the Hualien area. We know, like you already mentioned, that this particular area is very vulnerable and very hard to reach, especially because it's surrounded by mountains. And but the government has already deployed the military, and at the same time also sending a lot of other capacities and the police to help with the rescue efforts. And we know that most of the people that are stuck in buildings are now been evacuated, and they are expecting to evacuate most of the other people by tomorrow morning. So I think the all hands on deck situation is definitely happening over there right now overnight.
Yeah, and I imagine that, that building that we saw there, in the report, the one that was tilting over, I suppose that's in Taipei, because Hualien is quite difficult to reach at this time. Could you walk us through how much damage has been experienced in the region and the province, and if authorities are even able to get there, given that the major roads leading to the area has been destroyed by the earthquake?
So actually, the building that we saw in the video is in central Hualien. That is one of the two taller buildings that started to collapse immediately after the first two earthquakes. And in other parts of Taiwan, in fact, the damages and also casualties remain limited. I think this again shows that in the eastern part of Taiwan, buildings and infrastructure are just a lot more vulnerable to natural disasters like huge earthquakes like this one. And like you just mentioned, most of the main roads leading into Hualien has been so severely damaged that traffic has to be suspended, and the authorities are trying to use other ways, including air and sea traffic, to evacuate people that need to leave the area, whereas other people who have been stuck in the area for the entire day but need to go to other parts of Taiwan only has one route to reach other parts of Taiwan, which is to go first south and then have to do a whole circle to then reach all the parts of Taiwan that is on the western coast.
Much earlier, William, a tsunami warning was issued for Japan and the Philippines. We know the reactions from authorities there to the earthquake. I think we heard in the report Japan and China have offered relief. Any more information from the other countries?
Yes. So in fact, apart from Japan and China, we also know that the European Union, Lithuania, even the United States have all expressed their support and emphasized that they are considering the options and the sort of resources that they can spare to support Taiwan. We know that in this particular incident, China's expression of the willingness to support Taiwan is particularly important because we know that the relationship between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait hasn't really been at its best for the last few years. So at this particular timing, for China to first reach out with the olive branch and the willingness and the goodwill to support Taiwan probably will be a very unique and special opening for both sides of the Taiwan Strait to try to reduce the tension a little bit. But we'll have to see whether the Taipei side will respond favorably or not.
And earthquakes are not predictable, William. This is the first major one for Taiwan in 25 years, the last being in 1999. What's the protocol for a disaster of this magnitude?
So the disaster of this magnitude usually doesn't really happen that much, even though Taiwan does usually have several earthquakes throughout the year. So I think that's also one of the reasons why a lot of people have been telling me that even though they generally are used to living with the risks of earthquake, today's earthquake, especially the more than 150 aftershocks that has happened since this morning and still continuing to happen on the east coast of Taiwan, is making them very concerned about how the coming days will be, because the authorities over here have also warned the next 3 to 4 days there will be possible earthquakes between the magnitude of 6.5 to 7 happening again. And they're just wondering if there is enough support, or if Taiwan's overall infrastructure and their own houses can withstand another wave of huge earthquakes.
So what are people supposed to do in the meantime? I mean, you just predicted more disaster happening ahead. Sometimes the aftershocks are just as powerful or as damaging as the earthquake itself. What do people do in the meantime?
So it really depends on which part of the country they are in. In the place like Hualien, a lot of people are basically essentially keeping all the basic resources that they need and staying vigilant, but at the same time not trying to let the fear or concern overshadow their ability to be able to mobilize and know what they should do when another big earthquake struck. And in other parts of Taiwan, basically people have been carrying on with their normal lives, because very limited damages have been taken place in other parts of Taiwan. So like I said, I think it really depends on where they are, but there are definitely people who are trying to return to Hualien to support the local community.
So Hualien is the is the epicenter of this disaster. And, you know, the shocks were felt as far as Taipei, where you are. Could you tell us some of the damages, perhaps, that have occurred in Taipei, if there are any, and, you know, how people reacted to the shocks, and, you know, what they're thinking, you know, as the coming days ahead, with government announcing that there could be more aftershocks and so on?
Yeah, so some of the school buildings have been damaged, and so these schools have to discharge their students much earlier today, and they're expected to only be able to return to school sometime next week. And one part of a metro in New Taipei City has also suffered some damage, but the officials are expecting to be able to actually fix the problem by tomorrow. And really, for the rest of the city itself, everything still functions perfectly, and everyone basically, after the initial two magnitude 7.4, 7.2 earthquakes, have returned to the normal lifestyle. And it's a 4-day weekend coming up tomorrow. A lot of the travel plans are still being carried out. So I think because of the fact that they understand the damage and the impact is being limited to certain parts of Taiwan, so they're not really too concerned about the situation.
Well, you stay safe, William. Thanks again for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
The United Arab Emirates has conducted a 22nd airdrop of humanitarian aid over northern Gaza. The operation, dubbed Birds of Goodness, was carried out via the UAE and Egypt's Air Force aircraft. The UAE's Joint Operations Command stated that the aircraft airdropped around 82 tons of food and relief aid over inaccessible isolated areas into the northern Gaza Strip. A total of 1,153 tons of shipments has been delivered since the launch of Birds of Goodness. Meanwhile, the United States says it's outraged learning about the killings of 7 foreign aid workers in Gaza. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby called out Israel to conduct a swift investigation into the airstrike. Israel is taking responsibility for the attack, calling it a grave mistake. Yesterday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the incident as tragic, adding that the IDF had unintentionally harmed non-combatants. Mr. Kirby has reiterated the need for the IDF to protect civilians and humanitarian aid workers in the besieged Strip.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world. We send our deepest condolences to their families and loved ones. We've seen the comments from Prime Minister Netanyahu and from the Israeli Defense Forces about their commitment to conduct an investigation. As we understand it, a preliminary investigation has been completed today and presented to the Army Chief of Staff, and we'll obviously look to see what they discover in this preliminary one. But we expect a broader investigation to be conducted and to be done so in a swift and comprehensive manner. The IDF must do much more to improve deconfliction processes so that civilians and humanitarian aid workers are protected. The U.S. will continue to press Israel to do more as well to ensure the safety of humanitarian workers, and will continue to do all we can to deliver this assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza. I am not aware of specific verification that we can give to Iranian missiles being delivered to Russia for use in Ukraine. They certainly continue to deliver drones and actually helping the Russians manufacture Iranian-designed drones. And we do know that the Russians are and have been using now for quite some time ballistic missiles that they have gotten from North Korea. But I'm not personally aware of any verification that Iranian missiles have been transferred and used.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been meeting with French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné in Paris. During a joint press conference earlier, both leaders reacted to the waves of attacks in Ukraine, as well as Israeli airstrikes that left 7 humanitarian workers dead. Mr. Blinken lauded France's partnership on the Middle East crisis and emphasized the need for Washington to continue helping Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression.
They have been doing extraordinary, brave work, day in, day out, and critical work to try to make sure that people in need get what they need, starting with the most basic thing of all, food to survive. The victims of yesterday's strike join a record number of humanitarian workers who've been killed in this particular conflict. These people are heroes. They run into the fire, not away from it. They show the best of what humanity has to offer when the going really gets tough. They have to be protected. We shouldn't have a situation where people who are simply trying to help their fellow human beings are themselves at grave risk. We've been grateful for France's partnership on the crisis in the Middle East, and indeed working together to prevent the conflict that we see in Gaza from spreading to other parts of the region. Both of us agree on the need to get to the quickest possible ceasefire, to allow the release of hostages, to enable the surge and sustainment of humanitarian assistance. It has been our view and policy from day one when it comes to Ukraine to do everything we possibly can to help Ukraine defend itself against this Russian aggression. At the same time, we have neither supported nor enabled strikes by Ukraine outside of its territory.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné in Paris. We're off on a short break now. Will we return? More on the Israel-Hamas war, plus North Korea yet again testing new hypersonic medium-range ballistic missiles. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're continuing our stories on the developments from this region. The European Commission says it's alarmed by reports of Israeli strikes on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. The blockers call called for adequate probe to verify and ascertain the circumstances of the attack. Iran has vowed to respond to this strike, with President Ibrahim Raisi insisting this will not go unanswered.
We are alarmed by the alleged Israeli strike on an Iranian diplomatic building in the Syrian capital in Damascus, and the targeting of a consulate, actually, which is diplomatic facility. And our position is that in this highly tense regional situation, it is really of an utmost importance to show restraint, because the further escalation in the region is in no one's interests. There are ongoing contacts with Israeli partners to convey any sort of messages we have to them. In the meantime, you might have noticed that the IDF has actually come out and announced investigation of what happened. But yes, in general, this call is directed to those who bear ultimate responsibility. In this case, this is Israel, who is conducting military operations. So we address this call to the Israeli authorities. We noted that the call was already heard, or that they announced the investigation. Now we need to see a thorough investigation and clarification about what happened, how it happened, and the Israeli partners are very well aware of what we expect from them in the context of the overall conflict anyway. In general, there are rules in the international domain for almost everything, including for warfare, for wars, for armed conflicts, etc., etc. And our appeal to respect these rules is part of the integral part of our position and our call since the start of the latest conflict in and around Gaza. So we are stressing the need to respect international humanitarian law. The 27 member states of the European Union stressed very clearly that we are calling for an immediate humanitarian pause leading to a sustainable ceasefire.
Of course, there is a continued need to push for additional humanitarian assistance, and we look at all channels to exactly do that, including via the maritime corridor, but also including via the El Arish International Airport, and this toolbox is going to be continuously expanded as we go forward. When we look at our annual humanitarian aid budget for the Palestinian people, we find 125 million euro. That is something that we have announced already for this year. Of that, 81 million has been contracted so far. And this amount goes through a number of organizations, the World Food Programme, the Red Cross, UNICEF, UNRWA. So the World Central Kitchen is not one of these organizations. Respecting international humanitarian law is of utmost importance here. And according to the international humanitarian law, there should be no restrictions on how much aid can go into the Gaza Strip. There should be no restrictions on the categories of humanitarian items, nor should be there any restriction on who can benefit from humanitarian assistance.
It was only Monday Israel announced the siege on Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital was over as forces poured out of the facility, but the hospital has been left desolate and in ruins. Spokesperson for the World Health Organization, Margaret Harris, says a 2-week Israeli siege has left 21 patients killed. She describes the destruction as ripping the heart out of the health system.
The directors told us that Al-Shifa hospital is gone, that it's no longer able to function in any shape or form as a hospital. We know that at least 21 patients died during the period of the siege. We also know that the staff had to bring the patients together in a building that wasn't even a clinical building. It was a human resources administration area. They had no water, food. They were sharing one bottle of water between 15 people. Destroying Al-Shifa means ripping the heart out of the health system. It was the tertiary care centre. It was a huge hospital, 750 beds, 25 operating theatres, 30 intensive care rooms. You know, it was the place people go to for the kind of care that a really good health system provides. This was an agreed mission with this team. It was deconflicted. Deconflicted means both sides know they're coming, both sides have agreed. The car was well marked. It was very clear it was World Central Kitchen. Now, this is happening, and remember, hundreds of healthcare workers have been killed while doing their job. Ambulance drivers, and of course thousands of civilians, more than 13,000 of them. ceasefire, the UN resolution, the world has agreed a ceasefire must happen. It should have happened months ago, but it must happen now.
We're learning 6 Africans, including 1 Nigerian, were injured in the Ukrainian drone attack in Tatarstan, where Russia's 3rd largest oil refinery is situated. The strikes, in which 12 people were injured, are the deepest into Russian territory since the start of the war. Local authorities said the strikes hit the town of Yelabuga, where drones are thought to be produced at an oil refinery in nearby Niskamsk. Yelabuga is located in Alabuga Special Economic Zone, an area with a special legal system aimed at attracting foreign investment. Iranian Shahid drones, which are frequently used by Russia to attack Ukraine, are thought to be assembled in Yelabuga. According to media reports, at least 12 people, all of them students, were injured in Yelabuga. To an update on the shooting at a Finland school on Tuesday, police say the suspect in their custody, a 12-year-old boy, was motivated by bullying. His identity has not been released, but he was detained some distances from the school in Vantaa an hour after he opened fire on other children. 1 person died from gunshot wounds, while 2 others are seriously wounded. The 3 victims are all aged 12. The 2 girls, are still in hospital. Police said the boy had been transferred at the start of the school year to Vietola School in Vantaa, to the north of the capital, Helsinki. Police have opened an investigation into murder and attempted murder, but because of his age, the suspect cannot be held criminally responsible and has now been handed over to the care of social services. Let's head to the north of Korea now, which has again tested a new solid-fueled hypersonic medium-range ballistic missile. The Hwasong-16B missile was set on a launch facility before it was launched from an undisclosed location in North Korea. Leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the launch, calling it a strategic weapon, showcasing the absolute superiority of the North's defense technology. According to state media, the missile traveled around 1,000 kilometers with a maximum altitude of 101,001 kilometers. South Korea and Japan claim it flew around 600 kilometers, which is 400 less than North Korea reported. Hwasong-16B is a new type of intermediate-range solid propellant ballistic missile loaded with a newly developed hypersonic gliding flight warhead. Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington denounced the firing of the missile into the sea. Solid-fueled missiles are considered easier and safer to operate, as they do not require to be fueled right before the launching and therefore need less logistical support. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail. He's wasted no time tearing down current President Joe Biden's immigration policies and international relations. Trump was at a rally in Michigan's Grand Rapids on Tuesday. He encouraged Americans to throw Biden out of office. He highlighted the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border, which he says is 100 times worse than it was in 2016. He also noted that an even bigger damage could be World War III.
If you don't want illegal alien criminals crawling through your windows and ransacking your drawers, then you must vote for the fact that we have to throw crooked Joe Biden out as fast as possible, the damage he can do, and we're talking about a certain type of damage. An even bigger damage could be World War III, because this guy has no clue. He can't put 2 sentences together. And he's dealing with Putin, and he's dealing with President Xi, and he's dealing with Kim Jong-un, all people I know very well. We were under no threat from anybody until this guy got in office. Now they're talking nuclear all the time. We didn't talk nuclear. I rebuilt our nuclear power to a level that nobody has, but you don't mention it, and you don't talk about it. But now Putin's talking about it. And now Kim Jong-un again is talking about it. You had 4 safe years. You were safe because they respected your president and they respected the United States of America. And now you're not safe, I will tell you. We could end up in World War III with this lunatic. Biden border bloodbath. They want to talk about it, and we will talk about it. Our country is in trouble. We're a nation in decline. We're not going to let it happen. We've got to stop it. We've got to win on November 5th, and it's all going to stop, and it's going to stop very quickly. Today, the border is 100 times worse than it ever was in 2016. That was, I call it peanuts. That was peanuts. That was small time. And today it's the worst border anywhere, I think, in the world. There's never been a border like this anywhere in the world where millions and millions of people are coming. Thousands of people come over an hour. And there's never been anything like it. We're going to fix it. We're going to close it. And we're going to do many other things that we're not here to talk about, but we're going to make our country great again. We're going...
Now, you know we love discussing American politics here on the show, so here's our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, to do justice to the conversation. Maria, I guess that the Trump that we know or we knew is back, is looking past his court cases and focused steady on campaigning to be America's president again. But are the rallies as big and exciting as the ones he had before becoming president the first time?
You are exactly correct. He has looked past what we just were talking about earlier in the week, and he is now on the campaign trail. We know the states that he is looking to campaign in, like Michigan, are ones that he did not win previously, and so he's looking to ensure that he's able to get the balance there. And as you see through what you just shared with the audience is the fact that similar conversations, similar rhetoric, similar phrases around making America great again. That is something that we have not heard him talk about before. And so that's a clear indication that we are potentially in a position where you're going to see this former president looking to clinch that nomination on November the 5th. And as you can see, similar to before, he is stating those areas that he believes that the current president is failing in. And then when you hear conversations like, 1,000 people coming over the border per hour, those are things that really incite his base and that move him up a notch as it relates to him being able to clinch the ticket.
I'm glad you mentioned the border, Maria, because he highlights that situation really well. In this campaign in Grand Rapids, he's also brought it up a number of times. This has been a sore thumb, however, for even past administrations in the U.S. Illegal migration into the United States has been a major source of concern. What is Trump proposing should happen here?
Well, get the policy. That talk about the border wall, trying to increase border, so kind of re-engaging the.
Unfortunately, Maria, we're having trouble hearing you. You just keep fading in and out. I suppose you're in transit. We'll try to reconnect with Maria and have that conversation about the former U.S. president returning to the campaign trail. But it's been 1 day since he became president. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is hitting the ground running, putting together a government. He's announced the appointment of Ousmane Sonko, his party's leader and his mentor, as prime minister. The announcement came shortly after he was sworn into office on Tuesday, pledging systemic change after years of deadly turmoil under his predecessor, Macky Sall, a political opponent of Sonko. Ousmane Sonko and President Faye were both imprisoned just before the March elections. They were granted amnesty alongside many other political prisoners. Mr. Sonko had originally been named as the opposition presidential candidate until he was arrested and ruled ineligible to stand. During campaigns, both Mr. Sonko and Mr. Faye outlined radical political and economic reforms, including national reconciliation after months of turmoil sparked by their jailing. In his inauguration speech on Tuesday, President Faye said Senegal would become a country of hope with a strengthened democracy. Over in Gabon, talks have begun over the country's transition to civilian rule. Representatives from more than 100 political parties are taking part in what's being called an inclusive national dialogue. And the process was initiated by the country's military leader, Brigadier General Brice Oligui Nguema, and is chaired by the Archbishop of Libreville, Jean-Patrick Ibaba. The military forced out President Ali Bongo in August last year after an election beset by accusations of fraud. It since promised a transition to democratic rule.
For 4,000 people killed.
Staying with politics, but this time in South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma has filed an appeal against the Electoral Commission, which has barred him from standing in forthcoming elections. Local media reports that court papers filed on his behalf argue that the Electoral Commission had no valid reasons to violate the political rights of former President Zuma. The 81-year-old served as president from 2009 to 2018 when he had to step down because of corruption allegations. He was convicted and received a 15-month prison sentence in 2021 for contempt of court, and the Constitution says anyone who has had a prison sentence of longer than 12 months is not eligible to run for election. Since then, having left the governing African National Congress, has joined the new Umkhonto weSizwe party ahead of May's general election. Well, since we're still talking politics, we go back to the United States and back to President Trump on the campaign trail. Maria has rejoined us. Thank God we've been able to make the connection. Maria, Trump mentioned it's been a while, though, that he has the argument about Biden not being able to stand up to certain world leaders. He mentions President Putin of Russia, Xi Jinping of China, and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. But the world seems to have moved past that. The issues present now are the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza by Israel, hunting Hamas militants, and even more pressing, civilians and aid workers who are being killed in Gaza. What real solution is Trump offering regarding these issues, and what does he say about them, though?
You know, you're bringing up some very key points that we know that previously the current president ran on his foreign policy and his foreign relation experience. And so, as you can see, the former president is really taking that and turning that around, so people see him not as having an alliance and having a strong foreign affairs capacity and capability. And so when you talk about some of the world threats that exist, as you said, we're now dealing with two wars that obviously the U.S. has been very much a part of trying to bring peace in those regions. And so that is, kind of reversing what the Biden administration would say they've been working.
I do apologize, Maria. I guess the odds are not in our favor with the bandwidth connection today. We'll try to reconnect with Maria probably some other time. In the meantime, we're off on another break on The World Today. Still ahead. Spring is in the air. It's also the perfect time to witness the colorful cherry trees blossoming in China. Join us. Let's watch. Still watching The World Today. In South Africa, where the police services have shot and killed 9 suspects during a shootout in KwaZulu-Natal province. The gun battle happened at the site in Mariannhill in the early hours of today. It's believed the suspects were wanted for a string of crimes, including rape and house robbery. Police spokesperson Colonel Robert Natshrinda says officers acted on intelligence and cornered the suspects before the shootout happened.
But the team is out already. At least we know that we've got 2 people, and we know by now who we are looking for. And we suspect that they are armed with a rifle, could be more firearms. So the team is on the ground. We are searching for them. We are following some leads. We did not see anybody escaping from the house, so we believe that they were not part of the group when we arrived. But a day earlier, and we knew that the team is about 11 suspects, and our intelligence was so strong that when we arrived, we found at least 9. But the 2, for now, we are searching for them. We don't know where they were. Maybe we could have arrested them if they were here. But the fact that they were not with the rest of their group suggests that they were somewhere else. Maybe they were out somewhere doing some crimes. We don't know. But safe to say, our team has got intelligence that they are following. And we believe that just a matter of time before we arrest them.
Meanwhile, the South African police services have apprehended a suspect in Plettenberg Bay for poaching. The detained 44-year-old man from Jeffreys Bay was found with 34 kilograms of abalone valued at 62,000 rand. Meanwhile, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Barbara Creasy, has revealed a surge in poaching incidents compared to the previous year. In 2023, 499 rhinos were poached nationwide, with 307 of them tragically lost in KwaZulu-Natal alone. The South African National Parks has urged the public to promptly report any threats to wildlife.
Sandparks Rangers at Garden Road National Park suspected the poaching activity at Grootbank Forest Hall, which is in the western side of Nature's Valley. After noticing the patrol that was underway, 4 divers came from the sea and started running. Rangers immediately called for backup, and a prompt response of additional rangers, South African Police Services, as well as DFFE officials led to the apprehension of 1 suspect after a chase. Unfortunately, the other 3 suspects ran into the thicker forest area, which made it difficult to continue their pursuit. The arrested suspect is detained at SAPS Plettenberg Bay with 34 kilograms of abalone, which has an estimated street value of just under 63,000 rand. Sandparks encourages the public to report any suspicious activities that may threaten our wildlife and protected areas.
At least 10 civilians have been killed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo during an attack officials believe was carried out by Allied Democratic Forces rebels. Officials in Mangina, North Kivu province said the rebels set fire to a health center, looted shops and burned down houses in the village of Mangodumo. A patient at the health center is reportedly among those killed during the attack. The ADF was originally formed in Uganda in the 1990s, but after being routed by the army, remnants of the group fled across the border to the DRC. And since then, the Ugandan and Congolese armies have jointly launched a military operation against the ADF. Here in Nigeria, there's advocacy for the expansion of oil palm cultivation in areas beyond the southern region of the country to increase production above the consumption level. The executive director of the Nigeria Institute for Oil Palm Research shared more insights with Channels Television, along with other oil palm farmers who gave some essential planting tips for better yield. Our correspondent Jessica Olubusiri reports.
The oil palm fresh fruit after harvesting is received from the field either as loose fruits or bunches. The processing stages for small, medium or large-scale processors are usually the same. The difference is mainly in the equipment deployed. Here at the small-scale mill, a farmer and agriculture consultant, Mr. Edoma Iua, explains that the fermented fruits are filtered and then steamed in a large cooking pot, also called a sterilizer. From the sterilizer, the fruit goes to the digester, responsible for pounding. And then it's transferred to the press. He says it started with a small manual press years ago. A slightly bigger press has since been added. Mr. Hiwa notes that the palm oil extraction process could be faster with bigger machines. Still, it's a good place for a beginner without much funds to start.
For a beginner, if you want to go into the processing, you need a lister, 8 horsepower lister. You need one digester. You need one presser that will press the oil. Then you can do the selection of the kernel manually. But if you can afford the selector, or you use the digester also to do the selection, or you buy a selector.
He believes encouraging investments in agriculture is one way to tackle unemployment.
It's an area we advise government to get involved. We are talking of insecurity in the country now. Majority will be happier if they have something doing.
Another suggestion is that young people start early and not wait to retirement age before getting involved in businesses like the many available in oil palm cultivation and processing. Jessica Olubuse, Channels Television News.
Well, we love bananas, but do you know the trees are more useful than using them for food preservatives and for building houses? A community in Benin Republic is exploring its use by turning this natural wonder into eco-friendly products. It's all part of efforts to preserve the environment. Watch.
Community residents in Benin have embraced eco-friendly production methods by utilizing banana tree fiber to create various items and clothing in the village of Akodeha, located in the commune of Kome. This is led by agricultural entrepreneur Kosi Jiko with members of the Cooperative Africa Terra. Spearheading this sustainable initiative, it is a meticulous process of transforming banana tree fiber into products like hats, bags, and decorative items. However, despite the villagers' dedication to eco-friendly practices, community members face challenges accessing necessary materials and resources. Kosujigo highlights the need for assistance in providing essential resources, emphasizing that without electricity, production becomes difficult.
In Akodaha here, there is no electricity in the village, and without electricity, the production will not be abundant. Soon, people will start asking for even more. So we need resources. We need tools.
Established in 2000, Africa Terra, led by Jiko, focuses on banana cultivation and direct production of fiber-based items. The cooperative aims to enhance the weaving quality of products continually. Olivia Akoho, the beneficiary of basketry training and Africa Terra, praised the latest prototype of hats, describing them as original and of very good quality.
Here is the prototype of a hat made from banana fiber that we have made. We gradually improved the weaving quality of the hat by releasing this latest prototype, which is very pretty and fine. It is original and of very good quality, and compared to models made with other raw materials existing on the market.
The cooperative's efforts extend beyond local markets, with Jiko expressing plans to elevate the production chain to an industrial level, patent the brand and expand its market reach not only within Benin, but also across the African sub-region and globally. Through their commitment to sustainable practices and innovative approaches, the community members of Akodeha are demonstrating the potential of eco-friendly production and fostering economic growth while preserving the environment.
And as we end the program today, this is a true natural wonder in China. You've got to see the blossoming cherry trees. It's an event that attracts, oh, there it is. It attracts thousands of visitors, especially across China. One place they can watch and appreciate this is at the Wuhan Motion Cherry Blossom Park in Hubei province. The vibrant pink blossoms spread across the park, attracting sightseers eager to snap photos. Nearby skyscrapers light up as night falls, creating a pleasing festive atmosphere. Locals and tourists from different parts of China flock to the cherry blossom garden to admire nature's beauty. They stroll beneath the trees, capturing photographs and enjoying their meals amid the scenic surroundings. Wuhan Motion Cherry Blossom Park, located in the southern banks of the Yangtze River, is one of the most popular spots to visit, astonishing thousands every spring with its quantity and variety of cherry blossoms. A park also known as the East Lake Cherry Blossom Garden is open to sightseers, if you're in China, from 7 in the morning to 10 in the evening. They're really great for taking pictures, I tell you. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.